All right, I'll do a little intro for those of you who don't know me. I'm Cynthia Ko. I am the Director of Communications, Marketing, and Program Development here at Operation Code. I'm really happy to have Matt here today. This is his first time running a workshop with Operation Code. He's a Navy veteran. He's also an entrepreneur and founder and specializes in product management, product strategy. So we have not had a product workshop before, and a lot of people have been asking for one. There's been a lot of interest in being a product owner. What does that mean? What does that look like? I am happy to have you share your experience, Matt, prior to becoming an entrepreneur. And for those of you who are in the audience, again, you can introduce yourself in the chat, tell us where you're from, what you're doing, or what you'd like to do in tech, and then also ask your questions, and I'll address that as we go. So without further ado, take it away, Matt.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so I'll give a little bit of background where how I got here, and then I'll jump right into it. 7 years in the Navy as a cryptologic technician. When aircrew got introduced to programming. This is kind of just a fun little story, but we were getting ready to go out on a mission, and I run a lot of different equipment aboard the aircraft. And I was kind of just complaining about how one of my platforms couldn't do something that I wanted it to do. And this civilian was walking by and overheard my complaints and was just like, sat down next to me. He's like, what do you need it to do? Started talking to me, asking me questions, and then popped open a terminal, and it happened to be the engineer who designed the platform that I was running. And I was just like, no way. And recompiled the program and was able to do what I needed to do. So I was like, this is awesome. This is what I want to do. So that's how I ended up getting into engineering, because I was like, I want these superpowers. I want to be able to do this. So I went to Dev Bootcamp, which was one of the early day coding boot camps. And then from there, I studied full stack engineering, went to a consulting agency, where I got the opportunity to work on a ton of different projects. I got to work with small companies and Fortune 500 companies. So I got to run the gamut there, which was great experience. Then I decided I wanted to go deeper into product. I wanted to understand what it takes to make a great product. So I joined a very small startup, and started working with the team there and getting really involved, worked my way up, became the director of software engineering, also acted as the product, pretty much the head of product as well, and worked with a lot of other great team members to develop that product. We were in clinical education and clinical trial risk reduction. So from there, I transitioned and started my own company, and that's Aligner. And I work in, we want to help teams improve their product strategy and product discovery process. So that's what I do. And I like to work with them and do workshops with companies to help them improve that process. So I don't know, I'm just going to go ahead and jump into it. And if you have any questions, please do ask. Like I said, I like these things to be super informal. So let me go ahead and start this and then share my screen. Okay. All right. So introduction to product, how teams are building great products. So to get started, I like to first off define what is product. And I think Melissa Perry's got a really good definition. She's a thought leader in the product space, and she says products are vehicles of value. They're how you deliver value to your end users, to your customers, and that's what a product is. She talks about value exchange, how like users want something of value, so they pay a business, and the business creates that value. So it's this exchange. Another thing is products are different from services. So, you know, a services company, you have to continuously pay for that service to deliver the value. Product, the idea there is to create something that users can continuously use every time. So what's the difference? I feel like there's a bit of confusion about like, what's the difference between product versus project? You hear like PMs, or it's funny because it could mean one or the other, but you have product managers and project managers. And the difference is that projects have scope. They typically have deadlines, milestones. When you finish a project, you're going to go ahead and get started on your next project. It's going to get teed up. So products, it's the whole vehicle. It's the lifetime value of the thing that you're creating. So starting at the role, like with the roles, like what is a product manager? And this is one thing that I really love. So product managers, they own the why. Why are we building this? Like, why are we building this? Like, not necessarily what is the next thing, but they own the why, the business value behind the thing that's being created. They're influencers. And one of the strong qualities of a good product manager is they're really good at generating evidence for the thing to create buy-in between stakeholders, but not only stakeholders, the engineers, the UX team, they are influencers. They have to create that buy-in and paint a good story of like why this is the next thing that we need to be doing, how it's aligned with our product vision, how it's going to generate value for our users and for our business. Typically, they're phenomenal communicators. Because they have to be good influencers. Some of the things that product managers need to, or that they end up getting really good at, is conducting customer research. So interviews, talking to customers, understanding their needs, analytics, business and market data. So you got to think of it like this, like product managers, they serve the business and they serve their customers. So they have to understand those things intimately. This is another big one, listeners and collaborators. So product managers are technically not managers of people. They own the product. There are different levels of product management where eventually you, like as larger companies grow into these, they do directly manage people. But product manager, you're managing the product. So listening to your team, collaborating with your team is very important. There's this relatively newer idea of trios and product trios or squads, some teams call them, where product design, engineering work together collaboratively to create product. I think I already said deep understanding of the business is important for product managers to have that. Okay, so talking a little bit about the career path of a product manager, I really like this idea of breaking it up into tactical. This is something that Melissa Perry talks about in her book, and Marty Kagan as well talks a little bit about this kind of stuff. So tactical work, operational work, and strategic work. If you think about tactical as the short-term actions that a company or that a team is going to take to deliver on product, evaluating opportunities, doing like that actual customer research and the analysis, creating that evidence, that's the tactical work. Operationally, how do you connect? Well, actually, let's skip to strategic. So strategic work is your product vision. Where do we want this product to go? How do we want customers to look at this product? How is it connected to our business goals? And how are we positioning it in the market? So the strategic work has to be connected to the tactical work, and that's your operational work. So over here on the right are common roles for product managers. You have your associate product manager, senior product manager. Then you get into director, and this is where you start to have a little bit of people management. VP of product, and then large companies have chief product officers. There's also another title too. I think it's called group product officer. So what's the breakdown? So this little chart here is supposed to represent how much time each one of these roles spends in the tactical, operational, and strategic areas of product. So as you move up, you spend more time on the strategic end. At the beginning, you're going to be spending a lot of time on the tactical side of things until you get to around the director level. And then same thing with operational. You start to gain more responsibility there. And then that starts to teeter off where your chief product officer is pretty much focused on the strategic vision of your product. Okay, so I just noticed that people are chatting, so.
Yeah, they're introducing themselves.
Oh, okay.
We've got some great folks here that are interested in getting into product, or they are engineers trying to understand product.
Oh, perfect. Okay, cool. All right, well, I'll keep going. Interrupt me if there's a question.
Yep.
All right, cool. So product and project, where do all these pieces fit in? What are the pieces? So product vision, once again, this is what are the problems you're trying to solve out in the market, customer problems, business problem. But this is the vision for your product. The product strategy is how you're going to get there. One of my favorite strategists, not on the product, like in the product world, but his name is Rummel, and he says that strategy is just about, geez, I'm gonna butcher this, but it's just as much what you do as what you don't do. So really the idea behind it is strategy is supposed to be enabling and limiting. So product strategy, that's what product strategy is, if you hear that. Discovery is what do we need to do as a team to execute on this strategy? And then you have ideation techniques, like what are the actual ideas and the features that are going to create that value, or even maybe they're not even features, maybe they're just things that your company can do, but how are you going to create that value? And then there's execution at the project level. And obviously, if we got a bunch of engineers here, I'm an engineer at heart. I love writing code. This triangle hurts me a little bit when I look at it, because really we know on the engineering side that engineering's got like its own pyramid behind this. There's a lot of complexity there too. So not to diminish execution at all, just in the scope of, or in the lens of product. This is how I look at it. Okay, let me go to the next one. This is just something that I thought was really interesting. This title of product designer, and how do they fit into this? Design and product tend to be really closely related, and in fact, we're often confused with one another early on. But product designers are crucial. And what do they focus on? They help a lot with the discovery, really understanding the users, user experience. So through the experience, how are we delivering value? What are the workflow, the interaction and versus visual design. So interaction, what are the workflows that we need to create? Or as visual design, are we on brand? Is the typography and visual aesthetics. And also help with user testing as well. Okay, so this is a little graphic that I created that I really like to show people when talking about like why do we need to apply a product strategy? Like what is the importance of a product strategy? So on the left-hand side, this is supposed to represent a business that does not apply a product strategy. So they don't have enabling and limiting factors. They end up trying everything, seeing what sticks. When you apply a product strategy and you have a lens of like, these are the clear things that we are doing, and anything that falls outside of that is outside of the scope of what we do, it actually enables your team to create focus and create more value towards the objectives that you're trying to reach. And you prevent having to walk all of these paths that that if you didn't have one, you might end up trying anyway. So product strategy creates focus and alignment. Well, it creates focus. Goal setting creates alignment, and that's what this is here. So one of the next big things that product managers help with is setting goals and objectives. And I like to separate this into two different ways of thinking. So defining the problem, what is our vision, mission? Remember, that's strategical, it's not tactical. What is the clear diagnosis? What is the problem that our company is trying to solve, or our product is trying to solve? And then once you have that, that is the starting point of creating alignment. But objectives, how you're going to do that, that's when your team comes together on those, that's how you create alignment. So what are objectives? Like guiding policy, what are the things that we're going to do? What are the things we're not going to do? There's shared commitments to specific priorities, not at the feature level, priorities at the outcome level. What are we trying to achieve? And then they're a little bit action oriented. Like these are the kind of big steps that we're going to take towards achieving our goals. So goal setting frameworks that are out there. There are frameworks that teams use. Some of these may be familiar with you or familiar to you. Objectives and key results, SMART goals, and the North Star framework is metric oriented, but you can use it to help make decisions around what you do next. So I added that one in there as well. There's a couple others, but these are some of the popular ones that teams use. So on the metric side of things, this is a cool framework that I like, Google's HEART framework. So how do you create metrics around that help foster improvement towards the UX? So just a couple examples. You want to know if customers are happy with your product, so that's satisfaction. So one thing you can do is survey your users, ask them NPS and satisfaction rating surveys. Those are ways that you can collect that data to figure out if your users are happy with your product. Once you know that information, you can start to make decisions around how to improve your product. The same thing applies with all of these things: engagement, adoption, retention, and tasks completion, task success. So there are tools like this that product managers will use to help generate metrics and figure out how to improve a user experience or a product. How are we on time here? Okay, so OKRs and metrics. This OKRs, objectives and key results, that's what it stands for. So the objective is the big thing you want to create. It's aspirational. It's what you want to achieve that's going to help further your product vision. The key results are how you're going to measure that. And key results can be broken down into a number of different ways. You can have key results that are business oriented or performance like metrics, like increasing revenue, reducing churn. These are really great business goals, but if you try to hand increase revenue to your team, it's going to be very difficult to action. So a product team typically tries to break those down into product style metrics. And just to give a quick example, so if you have churn, so users are leaving your application and you want to reduce that, you want to keep them, you want to retain your users, how do you do that? So the first thing that you can do is to figure out why are our users churning. So you go out and you do a little bit of discovery work to figure out why are our users leaving. Once you know why the users are leaving, you can break those down into different product level key results. So just for example, maybe you run a couple surveys against your users that have left your application, and you figure out, hey, users find it difficult to share the data out of our application, and that's why they're leaving. okay, well, great. Now that you know that, you can create a key result that drives that specific cause of churn. So maybe it's stand up more integrations, et cetera, or create some type of way to export data. I don't know, just making stuff up right now, but you can start to do discovery against that key result, that product level key result, to actually figure out how to achieve it. So this is what the OKR framework is. Like, a lot of companies will cascade OKRs down to functional teams or down to individuals, and it's gaining quite a bit of popularity right now.
Can I ask a question that maybe people are thinking of?
Yeah, sure.
For the OKRs, who on the team normally comes up with these product questions? Is that the product manager, the product owner?
Comes up with so typically, so it's really different across teams. I mean, I run workshops with a lot of teams, and everyone does it differently. A lot of the literature says that you're supposed to come up with like the key results as like a team. Like, so you're gonna, with your engineers, your designers, and your product people, work together to define what those key results are. Objectives at the business level are normally passed down. Typically, at least that's what I'm seeing. They're normally business oriented. The product manager will be very aware of those and probably involved with that process. But it really does vary from what I've seen.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So OKRs are made for aligning teams and creating focus. It's what they do. It's a tool that's what they do. So one of the common anti-patterns for deploying OKRs is, and you may see this if you're an engineer or in design or on some other functional team, is that you'll have team level OKRs. So maybe you're an engineer and there's OKR that is something along the lines of, we want to reduce technical debt in our application by doing X, Y, and Z. Or you have some other, maybe you're UX UI and you want to implement some atomic design framework across your application, and to increase like brand consistency and efficiency in developing new components, et cetera. Like, those are specific to your functional area, your UX team or your engineering team or whatever. Maybe your data team has like specific ones as well. Those are going to be scoped to those functional teams. Problem is, if you don't have a product level OKR, something that's a little bit higher that drives business value, you don't have alignment. All of these things in isolation will probably improve your product, but the teams will not be aligned. So at least starting here is a good starting point, where you have a business that helps set the OKR, the objective, and the key results. And then each team works together to try to solve that objective. This is like a cross-functional team. And then you can still have your functional team level OKRs, like those are fine, but they need to be prioritized against your business OKRs, because really the goal here is to create business and customer value. And then, make sure it's attached to your vision. So discovery, I'd be really curious. I mean, I don't know if anyone's willing to come off mic for a moment or anything, but how many people out there use OKRs or some type of goal setting framework? I really should have started with like, what do y'all do? But if you don't want to come off mic, that's fine.
You can type it in the chat too. Yeah.
I would love to know, just so I can focus on a couple of those things. Anyway, I'll keep going for right now. So discovery is, what are our users going to find value in? And what's going to drive business value? What's going to drive customer value? So the common things that tools and techniques that teams use: talking to users, user research, interviewing, analytics. So implementing telemetry into your system so that you can gather information so you know how users are using your product. This is all important information for figuring out what's creating value for your users. Running experiments and studying market trends. These are all different forms of user discovery or of discovery.
We have a participant that posted in the chat, and she said that she uses SMART goals.
SMART goals, yeah, those are great. Yeah, so this is for everyone else. Like, this is what SMART goals stand for: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. A lot of those characteristics also play into OKRs. They have a lot of similarities. So those are good to hear that. Are you a product manager or engineer? Really close to the end here, so we can jump into some exercises here, answer any questions. But prioritization, this is another important thing that product managers work on, or that are a part of. This answers the question, what should we work on now? Very important to the business. So as well. So these are the kind of questions that you should ask yourself when prioritizing. This is what a lot of product managers do ask themselves when they're prioritizing. Impact. How can I determine how many customers are affected by these opportunities? So this is big. Like, if you're not able to figure that out, how do you know if the solutions that you're building into your product are actually going to make a difference? Viability. Is this something that's going to create business value? You could have something that customers absolutely love, but does not create business value. So it's important that, you have to be able to do that. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to sustain your product. Alignment. Does this align with our product vision, with our company goals, with our customer, like what we want to provide to our customers? Is it desirable? This one's often missed. Like, you end up, I'm sure if you've all been a part of product development, you've delivered features that just don't get used. It just means that it doesn't have desirability. So how important is it to your customers? Do they really care about it? Feasibility. Can we build it? So typically engineering is involved with this, but really you need to pull design and product into this as well. Just because the user really wants it, it's aligned with your product vision, and it would generate business success for your business, does not mean that you can still build it. So feasibility is important as well. And then ethics, I think, is a really important one. I just had a couple conversations today about this. So when you're setting goals, you got to be careful. You can set goals that would generate business value, but yet they don't have a positive societal impact. So you can think of the one example that came up was in the conversation was the Wells Fargo example, where they opened 2 million bank accounts. So the goal was, opening more accounts. That's what they were incentivizing for the business. So what ended up happening is these account managers opened roughly 2 million bank accounts without the customers knowing about it. And it was a big scandal. And really, it came down to how the incentives were set up. So when you're creating goals and prioritizing, just make sure that ethics plays a role in that process. And then here are some resources. I'll share this slide deck with everyone here. These are some of my favorites. So Marty Kagan, Melissa Perry, Jeff Gottheld. For building products, they talk a lot about that and some of the modern techniques that teams are using. Continuous Discovery Habits is great by Teresa Torres. That gets into discovery. How do you how do you figure out, once you have your, also like, how do you set your outcomes and how do you achieve them? It goes through a lot of what discovery is and some really practical tips for getting started at your company. And then I like Good Strategy, Bad Strategy. That is, it's a really good book just about strategy. There's a lot of examples. Rummel worked with and consulted with the US government. So there's a lot of examples of military strategy in there as well. Really cool. In the product community side of things, Product School and Mind the Product, there's some pretty active Slack communities that you can join for free, with a lot of product leaders and content that's just being, churned out. I feel like every minute. You can get some questions answered there. This one, Lenny's newsletter, has a Slack and a Substack. That one's really good and filled with some experienced product people. This one is a paid community. I forget how much it costs, but it's really good. And then Twitter product management is really good. So if you just follow this hashtag, you'll find a lot of really good product content there and really helpful people too. So that's all I got for the presentation. I am not big in Twitter, so I'm just getting started. So I would appreciate a couple follows there. Also, I post a lot of our content there. So if you're interested in some product related, product strategy, product discovery related tips, yeah.
You have a blog though too, right?
I do. Yeah. So I should have put that on there, but
okay. You can add it.
Yeah, I'll add
you a shout out.
Yeah. So I write a lot about product strategy and product discovery as well. Okay, cool.
So as you guys are getting your questions ready, put them in the chat. I'm going to get it started because I work in product design and UI UX design. And one of the frustrations that I have is getting a business, right? Working with cross-functionally. You said your engineers, your business analysts, your stakeholders, design team, getting everybody aligned, because teams can be very siloed and everybody's doing their own thing of what they think the priority is.
Yeah.
I think the hardest buy-in is to get that strategy working instead of just being so operational or tactical. Right. Is how do you look at the overall goal of where we're trying to take the business, where we're trying to take the product to match this business goal, and then making sure that everybody is aligned. So we're not really reinventing the wheel with folks just kind of being siloed, working on their own, not really talking to each other. And a lot of what I get is when I'm trying to do user discovery or user assessment interviews, I get told, hey, we don't have time for that. Like, we don't really have time. And I'm like really big on analytics. So it's like analytics drives decision-making. So if you can show, hey, we have metrics that show that users are dropping off on this specific page or screen because of X problem, because it's could be information architecture, could be the buttons, they don't know where to navigate. It could be too many steps to even join, to start using the application. Maybe there's no videos on like, how do I even use this? What do I do with it? You have to know your audience. And so if your audience is like folks that aren't tech savvy and they're forced to suddenly just figure it out, it could be a very huge blocker. But just trying to sell the idea of a strategy is really hard. So what are some techniques that you use to soften the culture?
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I think you're hitting the nail on the head with the problem. So that I am building the product that I'm building, Aligner, is built in a way that requires you to set a product strategy. Like, you have to start there. And that's because it's vital and important, as you're calling out, to have a product strategy to really create true alignment across teams. You also said another thing about collecting data and analytics. So really, one of the best ways, and a lot of the advice that I hear, this is like probably one of the biggest challenges that every team is facing within their business, within the companies that they work, is building this, creating what is the product strategy? What are we working towards? but showing your work. So you said collecting data, analytics, collecting proof and showing and being able to put that together into a story is going to be one of the best tools that you can have, one of the best skills that you can build and tools that you can use to generate buy-in, both up the chain and down. So we're like not down, but working with your peers. You know, here's the proof. Here's why we need to build this. You're going to get a lot more engagement from your engineers. You're going to get a lot more engagement from the rest of your team. And if you can prove that this is why we need to build this to your stakeholders and your leaders, it's going to build more trust. It's still extremely difficult. I saw that there was a question about turnover for PMs in an organization or a company. I think it really largely, once again, depends on like the organization. I mean, I feel like product managers are right in the crosshair. It's not an easy job. There's like a trending thing about, or trending topic right now on Twitter and product management about just the stress of the job and the psychological well-being of product managers, because you're really put in the middle of a lot. One of the things that people say is when products fail, they blame the product manager, but when products succeed, they praise the team. So if you've been around in the product world, I'm sure that'll resonate with you. So I don't know if I answered either of those questions really well, but yeah.
I think the second part of that question too is oversight. So there's like two separate questions. Like I think the second part says, would a company need someone there long-term to see the product all the way through? I'm assuming, and Nam, correct me if I'm wrong, that means all the way through to implementation, maybe from concept, you know, discovery, concept, all the way through to implementation. That's kind of like your software lifecycle. But what happens when you have a product manager that just gets thrown halfway through the pipeline?
Like,
or they suddenly get told, hey, now you're going to switch gears and you're no longer overseeing this product. You're overseeing other.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, I'll get on my soapbox here for a second. So let me just pull it up. I mentioned, all right, where is it? Yeah. So, I mean, this is kind of fun, I guess. We'll just put it that way. So like switching projects, and well, first we'll start with like overtasking teams. So if you've ever worked in product, I'm sure you've had like multiple concurrent projects running at the same time. This is data that backs how much productivity loss you will have if you task your team with too many projects at the same time. So if you have a team size of 14 and everyone's working on one project each, everybody's working pretty much full time. We'll just skip all the way to the bottom here. If you have a team of 14 people and everyone's working on 5 simultaneous projects each, you'll have 14 people doing the work of 3.5 people. Like that is context switching, does that much damage. So now the second part of that question is like joining projects midway through, et cetera. Like, what does that look like? So there's this thing that I've been talking about for a little bit called a learning tax. So if you start on a new project, there's going to be a ramp on. Like you're going to need to learn about the business part of that domain. You're going to need to learn about the technology behind the product and the effort, the initiative that you're working on. So that's this right here. So the longer you're on it, the more you're going to learn about it. And then you gain more efficiency, you gain more velocity. So if you're continuously shifting projects, you're going to have loss. You're going to have a velocity loss because it takes you time to ramp up on new things. So do I think it's important? Yeah, the longer you can keep a team focused on one big objective, the better, because you're going to gain a ton of efficiency in after you start learning and discovering about the problem solution space that you're working in. So does that resonate with everybody or anybody?
That's real life issues, man, that most people don't get. When they're like, I need you to do one more thing. I'm like, no, I already have 10 different things.
Right.
All right, we've got some questions coming in. Paji says, any advice for someone trying to break into the field?
Yeah, so there are, so I would start by, let's see here. Some of these resources here are really great for just understanding it. I don't know what your background is, but if you're an engineer or you're in design, or you're working on product already in some capacity, you're already gaining some of these skills. So I just continue to study these things, and then I really startups are looking for product people. I don't know, it's hard to say like, go join a startup or go, work at an agency or a large company, because it really depends on your personality. I feel like it, when it comes to that. But if you're looking for some experience, there are tons of companies hiring. A lot of these Slack communities are looking for product people. They post jobs continuously. So I'd say apply, get the experience. Don't feel like you need to have every single box checked before you apply. You will learn an absolute ton. If you can find a mentor, those are really key to building some of these skills as well. I'm trying to think real quick if there's any other like big tips that I have. I mean, I came at it from engineering, and like I ended up running like a lot of product decisions at the startup that I worked at, but I still had an engineering title, director of software engineering. So I gained like all of that experience through that. So there are like non-traditional ways to get into it too. So I see, so what are your thoughts on Agile Scrum methodology? So the principles of Agile, I absolutely love. I think a lot of it, so a lot of the product advice that I'm sharing right now is on the modern side. A lot of it's inspired from this plus other content that has been, or books and podcasts and blogs that have been written in the past few years. I don't like to get in the middle of framework wars or anything. I like to focus on the value, but I do think that Agile has a lot of really great principles. And my big thing is just about the ceremony. I'm not a big ceremony or like doing things for the sake of doing it by the book. Like if you know exactly why you're doing it and it works for your team, yeah, do it. If you're just doing it to try to follow a certification or like what you've learned in classes or courses, certification, just to follow it, then I'm not as big of a fan of that. But they exist for good reasons. Like a lot of smart people, lived it and put those things together. But I'm a big fan of testing and trying and see what works.
We've got a question that says, is there an institution that's trying to come up with a credential for product managers?
Well, I mean, there's for product managers. Yeah, there's, was it Product Management Institute? Yeah, there are things that there are, I mean, you can go get certified in a lot of different things, or a lot of different methodologies, or I'm not really super familiar with like I don't know, industry standard product management certification. that a lot of teams are looking for. A lot of the ones that I'm like, I talk to a lot of product managers and a lot of companies, and I've helped place a couple product managers. Certifications typically don't come up too much. They want to see your experience. They want to know that that you know how to build product, that you understand a lot of these the basic principles and how to work with teams. That's really big. If you know, there are a lot of different kinds of product managers out there, but they want to, certifications haven't come up as much in my experience. I work with a lot of startups, Series A, Series B size companies though. So I don't know, and actually some larger companies, but they haven't asked me for when I'm referring people. That wasn't like a showstopper or anything.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think for a product manager, you really have to have either a background on the design side, product design side, business side, or engineering, pretty much any. I think what's more important is what we refer to as soft skills. And I hate that term because it's like as if it's not as important as your technical skills. But really a product manager, in my experience, is you've got to be cross-functional. You have to have really great communication skills. You have to have really good analytical skills, know how to work with different types of people and different types of teams, and also translate something that's very technical into what your stakeholders will understand. Because at the end of the day, a lot of the decision-making folks are going to be on your business side or the people that are investing in the product.
Yes. I do see a lot of them end up transitioning from design or from engineering into those product roles. That's what I see more. That's probably the most common path that I see to product management. Although I do know a ton that wasn't really their backgrounds. I did see advice the other day. It's like, if you're going to be a product manager, you need to take some introductory coding classes. And they even said, like, not HTML, introductory coding, take that. And the other piece of advice was accounting, because you really do need to understand like the business aspects. You need to understand the kind of terminology and calculations behind creating business value, customer acquisition cost, churn, all those things. So
this was really helpful. Thank you for joining in, Matt, and I hope we can have more workshops like this. Folks, if you want to reach Matt, I think if you go to the contact page, he's got his Twitter and his LinkedIn, feel free to reach him on there. Or if you're at Operation Code, you can ping him on Slack. If you haven't joined Operation Code yet, I'm putting the link in the chat so that you can join and become a member. And we'd love to have you at our next workshop in March. Thanks for attending.